What if I told you that the only link to my past were a few old case study papers and captured memories of people I once had called my foster family? I was 18 when I first saw these papers. I asked for them for my birthday. This is the first picture of me found in my case study papers. I would look at these photos and just wanted to know who they were. Before my adoptive mother would tuck me in at night, I would always ask her about my foster family in the Philippines. I would ask her about what they were like and if I could someday meet them. Although knowing I had a foster family, something felt missing or incomplete. How would you feel if the first chapter of your life was ripped out? After reading my case study papers, this is what I found. Out of 7,107 islands, I am from one. On January 24th, I was found in a plastic bag, hanged on a banana tree, in the upland portion of Mabali, Tabogon, Cebu, Philippines. On January 27th, I was admitted into the Reception and Study Center for Children in Cebu City. Here is where the abandoned and abused are admitted. During 1992, I was transferred to the foster home of Mr. and Mrs. Perfecto and Bernarda Torres in Labangon, Cebu City. During Holy Week of 1993, I was adopted by a white American family in the Metro Detroit area of Michigan.
And I remember seeing the picture of you, and I was real excited. We were in Brownstown, and I ran up the stairs, because I was just so excited, The following March, around Easter, we went and got you. My first experience of going into, flying in to Quezon City, I just couldn't believe the traffic and the people and the noise, and it was just a lot. I stayed at a residential area. The following day when I came in, I went to the orphanage where you were at, and I met you. That was the first time I ever, saw you. You were cute, like all your pictures, you're a doll. And then I spent some time with you, and I brought a truck.
I don't remember very much about my short stay in the Philippines. However, I do remember short flashbacks of the last day. I have a vague recollection of the grounds I once set foot on, and the concrete buildings that surround it. Despite my unique heritage, I felt just like everyone else while growing up in Brownstown Township.
Okay, so when James, when you came to Brownstown, and when we first brought you to Brownstown, my main concern was that you were going to adapt to us. Okay, so probably the first 6 months of you being with us, I was more concerned with your well-being. Then after that, I was concerned with how you were going to get along in the neighborhood. Then, you know, that's when that took place.
Mama Nora,
Say hi, Santa Claus.
bring me lots of stuff.
Daddy.
Yeah.
Yeah. What is this?
I remember going to the airport when you guys were coming
You
home,
hope to get a lot of presents, James? Huh? You want a lot of presents?
and I just couldn't get over how little you were, you know. I thought it was cool that they were going out of the country because it would give another child more of an opportunity than, you know, maybe where they were living.
James, the back wheels are not on the track. See? Get them off the track. James, you okay? You having fun?
Especially once we got the referral that James was 3, that he, you know, at the time he was potty trained.
You having fun? Maybe Mama will blow it for you.
However, you know, she said that he might, you know, regress because of coming over and coming into a different environment. She indicated that there might be, you know, some grieving, okay, going on, which there was, you know, because James, he cried in his sleep because he, you know, he missed the Philippines, he missed his other home. She explained to us that there might be some going backwards, you know, because of the situation that James, you know, the adjustment that James is going through. The biggest thing, though, was, you know, the attachment. Would he be able to attach to us or to bond to us? And I remember her giving us this book called Holding Time, and James and I would sit for a while, and that was a mechanism to bond. And we would do that for about 45 minutes, maybe 3 or 4 times a week. And that was a mechanism to get close. And so those were all the preparations that we went through when we adopted James.
Recording.
I had concerns, of course. You know, I was very protective of you. I didn't want anybody to hurt you, you know, so there were a lot of concerns. I know I was, before you went to school, I was really, really concerned, you know, but there was, you know, concerns, and you would come home crying because somebody picked on you or somebody did something to you. And so, you know, we watched over you pretty closely at that point.
Well, as far as the bullying goes, I know there was a family that lived next door to us. There were 4 boys. They were rough, really rough. I can remember one of them pushing you off your bike and giving you a huge scratch on your chest. I think probably because of, 1, your size, and 2, because you were different. You looked different. And so they just felt that they could overpower you, and you just let it happen.
While growing up, I hated looking different from my family members. I remember a point in time experiencing some microaggressions and some prejudices. Racial microaggressions are brief and commonplace daily verbal, behavioral, or environmental indignities, whether intentional or unintentional, that communicate hostile, derogatory, or negative racial slights and insults toward people of color. I felt like I was being stared under a microscope when I was out in public with my family. One of the things that people would ask us was, "Where did you get him? Where is he from?" There's a lot more to adoption than what meets the eye. I remember my skin being compared to poop from a childhood friend's older brother. I never told my parents about situations like that. So my mentality at the time was that I thought because they don't look like me or I don't look like them, they wouldn't understand. We were always volunteered to bring the gifts to the altar. It was really traumatizing with all of those pairs of eyes directly on us. When I got older, I feel like they were trying to communicate was that love transcends race. If this was their true intentions or wasn't, it still was unwanted attention.
I didn't know that you were adopted. I just know when your mom came with you, and I was wondering, but I didn't know for sure that you were adopted. So when you came, certainly it was very good for me to see you there.
I feel that the Filipino community, what it's done for James, is it was a place where he felt accepted. He felt like he didn't have to be somebody different. Rose Tute was living at the senior center in the city of Novi. And my husband, Jim, was working there. And we introduced James to Rose Tute. And Rose Tute was very influential in James getting involved in the Filipino community because she's the one that told him about the school in Southfield. She was very, very influential in his life at that time by opening the doors up to this community that he enjoys so well.
It's really ecstatic and being able to learn about how to speak Filipino more in depth than what I've taught myself already. And then I was also able to learn some Filipino history in this one class called Filipino Youth Initiative.
I'm actually buying this hotel and you're going to have to get out.
So Filipino Youth Initiative, or FYI class, is an intergenerational class for Filipino youth 13 years old and up.
We have a lovely compensation package of $2.
The Filipino Youth Initiative teaches Filipino American culture, history, and community.
When I first came in contact with the Filipino culture, I had the strong desire of wanting to learn about Philippine history, as well as Philippine American history, and the only sources I had at the time was probably Wikipedia and a few YouTube videos I've watched, and a few websites that I probably have bookmarked. But other than that, I only knew clip note versions of Philippine culture.
You know, I figured that's the way, you know. I've been coming to this class now, right, just then, for many, many years, and I haven't really gotten too many people coming into the class because they think it's all in the books, but in the book it's not really as he said. What we always learn here, it's not there.
When I came to the class and we got to map out our own timeline of Philippine American history, and such as when our ancestors came here and the hardships that they went through and how that related to the larger context of Philippine American history. The thing is that how I felt at the time was I felt very alone. My circumstances of coming to America or being in America were a lot different. And it was a large contrast compared to a lot of other Filipino Americans who were born here. And my cycles of wanting to come here, yet there was such a detachment, there was such a disassociation of Philippine culture. This is the place that I call my second home. The Philippine American Community Center of Michigan. Today is the graduation day. Although I come here and everyone I look like goes here, I still feel out of place. A dissociation of Filipino identity, or even let alone Asian American identity, because I was slowly discovering what that really was and what that really meant to be. I remember that one of the workshop exercises that we did in Filipino Youth Initiative, or FYI class, was where we had to take certain key points of when our ancestors or family members came to America, and we put a little post-it note about on the timeline when people in our family came here, and I was the only one. And we also had to note things such as when people in our family were born. And then I told the mentors at the time, I'm like, well, I'm adopted. Should I still put things up such as my adoptive parents, family members come here? They're like, oh yeah, go ahead. But even though I wasn't Filipino American, it was the inclusion that even though their experiences were not the same as most Filipino Americans, I think being like I was still part of the culture, still part of the Filipino community despite my background of being adopted, I think that's what really invited me in and made me feel like I was at home in the Philippine American Community Center.
Those are the two classes that really, I think personally, started your search and connect you to your Filipino culture. And of course, absolutely, this is only a part of your learning and searching for your Filipino identity. This search is a lifetime process. So it will be a long way to go, but with your background and your sensitivity and your determination mentally and physically to learn something about yourself, about your culture, and of course, your family here, being adopted to a Caucasian family. Those are the two aspects of your life that it will be a good process then. It will be a lifetime learning experience too.
Because this was my reality.
Because they're not true.
They're meant to degrade.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah.
They're meant to degrade.
Yeah.
That's a good description.
For the ones that are like larger phrases, what do you think about those ones?
They're trying to be positive, but they're not.
Okay. In what way do you think they're trying to be positive, but they're not?
Well, that one right there, just move on.
Just move on?
Yeah, God has a bigger plan for you. Using God as an excuse for
People
you
would
to
always tell me that I'm lucky, and that I should just be thankful and grateful It's basically a thorn in my side, being told to stay silent, especially after telling people my experiences, which some adoptees, not all, experience as well. I think that when the feelings and experiences of some adoptees are dismissed, they internalize those feelings, and it generates frustration and inner turmoil for the adoptee. When I started being part of the Filipino American communities, I asked a lot of people and I told them about my story because I thought that if you take an issue that you need to acknowledge, you need to shed some light upon the issue, or else you're just going to sweep the issue under the floor. And if you do that, then it doesn't really help fix that issue. It just covers it up. And so, aside from culture and history, mapping out our own personal histories via oral tradition was something that had really intrigued me. So I started by making this video. Hi, so my name is James. I'm going to talk about race and culture identity in this video. The reason why I'm talking about culture identity is because, well, I'm adopted. I'm Filipino and I'm adopted. So I'm going to talk about questions that adoptees usually are asked. FYI class intertwines culture, history, and creative expression. Spoken word from Filipino Youth Initiative turned into this.
Into my reflection, it's like every other person's reflection. But as for my own, it is the constant reminder of two unknown phases, two halves that make a whole, two whose lives once crossed. Histories and histories that converged into my story.
One thing led to another, and so I created this blog, Pathos of Asian Adoptees. I think that when the feelings and experiences of some adoptees are dismissed, they internalize those feelings, and it generates frustration and inner turmoil for the adoptee. And Pathos of Asian Adoptees is based on that initiative. It's also based off of this book called After the Morning Calm, which is about a bunch of Korean adoptees who tell their life experiences of what it's like to be adopted. And so after reading the first chapter, it talks about this one Korean adoptee and how she looks into the mirror and how she just would hate looking in the mirror, and then she would see all these photos of herself and family photos of herself, and she would just have such a strong distaste of the way she looks. And after I read it, and I would see my family photos and how I would look at myself in the mirror, it reminded me of the same exact thing of how I just felt like I didn't belong, and I hated the feeling of whenever there would be a family video or family photos of how I just would stick out so much.
So when James started having this desire to find his foster family, I knew that at a certain point it was something that he was curious about. As he got older, I knew it was something more of a passion, and I knew it was going to happen. When he started searching, it didn't bother me that much. And I had, when he was 18, we gave him all the adoption papers and everything that we had. He's always been like this, a very curious kid. So when he started looking for all of this, I thought it was good. I thought it was a good thing for him. I just didn't know how far he would go with it. So the curiosity and the passion of looking for all of that, I thought was very, very positive.
Other than that, the temperature is 88 degrees Fahrenheit, 31 Celsius, if you prefer that. There are...
What I found most interesting is that it was a camp where I've got exposed to many other Filipino adoptees, and I've never really had a chance to meet other Filipino adoptees. For the campers, I think it's really cool that there's a sense of consensus or a mutual understanding. They don't have to go through the whole I'm adopted conversation with any of their friends because it's just assumed. I started attending Filipino Heritage Camp for adoptive families and adopted Filipino children back in 2010, I believe. I never got the chance to be a camper, but I was able to be a camp counselor. During high school, I saw that they had Filipino Heritage Camp because I've heard about Chinese Heritage Camp, Korean Camp, and I always wanted to know if they had a Filipino Heritage Camp. And so I did hear about heritagecamp.org. Thank you to L'Oreal Crowder, who was the Filipino Adoptees Network organizer. She reintroduced me back into it. After meeting L'Oreal Crowder, who's the first Filipino adoptee I ever met, I've become more and more interested in trying to understand if other Filipino adoptees have the same kind of experience that I do.
Hi, the Filipino American Community of Colorado, we are the oldest Asian organization in Colorado. We've been in existence since 1954, and we have been with this camp for the last 12 years.
My name is Fran Campbell. I am the ex officio former president of the Filipino American Community of Colorado. I also facilitate diversity classes and cultural classes called This Is Me for Heritage Camp for Adoptive Families. This Is Me are classes that were established established within Heritage Camp for Adoptive Families for several reasons. One of the main reasons when we first started it was to give the cultural community that volunteers at each of the camps a way to share their culture in a different way rather than just food and dance. It was a way for the cultural community to talk about the actual personality of the Indian culture, the Filipino culture, the Chinese culture. We also established these classes as a response to the research which has shown us that many adoptees, when they are young adults and they graduate high school and are moving on to college or moving out on their own, when they realize that they're not going to be with their adoptive parents anymore and there's this great big wide world out in front of them, that if they are not quite connected to their birth culture, they may feel disconnected, which results in some anxiety and confusion. And what This Is Me hopefully helps them do is give them the tools to better connect with that cultural community, their ethnic birth heritage.
I was in contact with the Inter-Country Adoption Board for about several months before I went on my birth family search in the Philippines. And they said, well, okay, so you want to look for your foster family. And I also told them that I wanted to search for my biological family. Because I don't have much information about who my biological family members are, there was nothing that I could really go by upon doing my birth family search. So during that time, after contacting the Inter-Country Adoption Board and the Department of Social Welfare, it got to a point where I said, well, let's just look for Elizabeth Ochia, who is the lady who said she found me in a plastic bag hanged on a banana tree. Before on this trip, I had this one person, he contacted me through my Kickstarter. So I gave him the name of Elizabeth Ochia. And he lives in Bogol, which is another village right next to Mabali, where I was born in. or found. When he gets there, he finds out that Elizabeth Ochia had passed away several months in April 23rd. And he also found out that Elizabeth Ochia has a daughter and also a sister who still live in the area. When I attended Filipino Heritage Camp back in this past summer, it was summer of 2013, I was actually going to connect back to the Philippines for the very first time. And I was sitting there and I was at the international airport, or the gates. I was sitting at the gates and I see all these Filipinos, and I couldn't believe I was actually going to the Philippines at the time. And I'm pretty sure I was actually having an anxiety attack because I was pacing back and forth, and I really think about it, I could be related to any of these Filipinos here. It's just like going back to the Philippine American Community Center of Michigan for the first time. I get off the plane and I get off and get my luggage. I started freaking out because I didn't know where I'm supposed to exchange money. People had told me to be careful if someone tries to charge you money to leave the airport, because I guess that could happen. Part of my trip to the Philippines, I had to go to the Global Consultation on Child Welfare, which was part of the Motherland trip tour. The Filipino Adoptees Network and the Inter-Country Adoption Board had collaborated with. So there were several delegates who are from outside of the Philippines who were in charge of adoption welfare, as well as delegates within the Philippines who were in charge of the Department of Social Welfare and other things that pertain to adoption, maybe orphanages. I was invited to be one of the speakers at the conference, and I told my story. I was found in a plastic bag in the upper portion of my village barrio in the barangay of Tabugon. Before and after the conference, I came in contact with my foster mother. So, I get to finally meet my foster mom for the very first time in 20 years. And then I have the Filipino American Community Center of Michigan. The people there who have a lot to thank for, because they helped me search and find them only within like a matter of 4 days. So this is my first time back in the Philippines. It's pretty much everything I've imagined it to be, or what other people have told me. So at first I was scared of coming here because I didn't know what to expect. Okay. Yung nasa taas. A 2.5-hour taxi ride later, we finally arrive in our destination. Thank you. We arrive at my foster sister's house. During the duration of my trip, they allowed me to stay here.
Jeez, James.
I'm graceful.
Okay. Put your bag on. If you want it, give me your camera too.
Yeah.
that her?
Yeah. That's Chito.
Go, just go.
Chito Sonia siya. Friend ko si L'Oreal powder. Nakapon din siya ng kotse. My gosh, she has a picture.
Mga about 2-year-old.
Talaga.
Tatay Piping. Ay, Ate Bibi. Ate Milin. Ayan na, Ate Sonia, ina. Magkakapatid. Tapos yung
Si Yami.
Siyami. Ayun, bakit alam mo Siyami? Ha? Yan o.
Her voice is exactly how I remembered it to be.
Pareho sa...
We had a slight language barrier, but we still were able to communicate. And we talked about how life was before.
Naaalala mo na ba ang mga
nakaraan?
Pag naalaga mo
You are 1 year old. Galing DSWD. So, ako'y nagtataka. Kumbaga, mabubuhay pa kaya itong bata to. Sinabi sa sarili mo, ang payat-payat na, ang liit-liit. Tapos sabi ni Ma'am Alma, sige, alam ko yun, kaya mo yun, alagaan mo yan. Sabi ni Ma'am Alma, Ma'am Alma, ang liit-liit man yung bata to. Sus, parang masakitin talaga. Sus, kaya mo yan mag-alaga ng bata to. Okay. Alam mo, lahat ng mga anak ko puro babae. Kaya nga, nung tinanong kami ng DSWD, ano ang gusto ninyong maging alaga ninyo ng mga bata? Sabi ko, isang lalaki na, ma'am, kasi puro babae yung anak ko. Sabi ko, puro babae, 5 sila, puro babae. Ang gusto ko, ma'am, lalaki na naman. Parang, kumbaga sa pamilya namin, magkaroon kami ng anak-anakan na lalaki. Iyon ang ikaw. Yan na, si James na. Na-license ako 1990. Hinatid kita sa airport. Basta masakit. First child nga namin ang inalagaan. Kaya nga lahat kami parang lulungkot. Malungkot kami nung kinuha ka na ni mami mo. Sabi ko pa kanya, ay, alagaan niyo yung bata na yan. Kaya masakit. Lungkot kami lahat nung umalis ka. Mabuti, sumunod naman itong si Chris. Bigyan ako ng bata kaagad. Pero ikaw ang pinaka-number 1. Sumunod si Chris. Sumunod si Kanyete. Sumunod may Kanyo. Basta dami ko. Kahit tingnan nyo dyan sa sa record doon sa DSWD Cebu. Wala ka na. Nag-alaga pa rin ako ng 10 baka. Tingnan mo lang. Kasama ko pa yung aba ninyo ni Jesus na he wants to verify you the place where he was found. He wants to meet you your biological parents if possible. Because we know the place where she was found. And then sabi niya, he wants to know everything. Baka mahanap pa niya yung mama niya. Baka mahanap pa niya yung mama niya. Mapatawa daw niya. Bakit ginawa mo? Bakit ginawa mo sa akin? Bakit ginawa mo kay James?
So from here, we went to Cebu.
Dili lang natin alam.
I went with my foster mother and we both flew out to Cebu. And we stayed at Asilo. Asilo is one of the orphanages. I went with Rose Tatoe and Emma Patalingkul. And so it was with those two and my two foster nephews. And we all went to Tabogon in Cebu.
With you is, what's the name? John?
Christian.
Christian. And this one is?
Jorin.
Joren. So we are about to leave, bound to Tabogon this morning, and here's
It was about
James.
a 2.5-hour ride out there.
We are here at RECC, the Reception and Study Center for Children. We are now in Mandaue.
Mandaue?
This
is Mandaue.
Mandaue, Cebu.
Famous for name?
Famous for beer, for the San Miguel.
I'm in the right place.
You're in the right place.
Para maging lasing, di ba?
Yes.
Nahilig ko sa inumi.
And this is also the place for the Department of Foreign Affairs is in Mandaue. There are many businesses here. Business for cars, Toyota, the Honda, the offices here. And if you want to buy cars, you can buy here in Mandaue City. And yun, please give me one car when you buy.
Kung ako ay magiging pangulo ng Pilipinas.
Yes. Yes, you don't forget to buy me one at Toyota.
Magbayad ako para sa inyo ng kotse.
Yeah.
Basta
One town to town.
And then we'll be in Tabogon.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
After this municipality, it's Tabogon.
What is your feeling, James, that you reach already your
Destination?
About to reach.
Or there.
About to reach the hometown decision.
I feel like I'm in a dream and it's very surreal that I'm actually here. None of this feels real.
You're feeling the first time you touched down, your plane touched down.
Yeah.
Philippines. What was that feeling? Were you able to sleep on the plane?
I didn't really sleep because I had a friend to talk to the entire time.
The one who saw you, who was the one who saw you?
Her name is Elizabeth Ochea.
Oh, si Elizabeth Ochea.
She's dead too.
Oh, dead?
That from what I found out.
Maybe she
has
family.
one daughter and one sister. I have my connections.
You talk already?
No,
You met
no.
on the internet?
I find people contact me and do what they can. I mean, it may be true, it may not be true, but
So she will be here?
her
Ochea.
her relatives,
Her daughter.
yeah,
And the neighbors. Maybe the neighbors can still remember you.
they do. I had someone go because he lives in the town right next to here. I forgot which one.
Did they know you're coming today?
No. We have to be careful when we ask because they remember my story.
Yes.
Because I guess not many people really leave my barangay or my barrio.
So we will go first to the mayor, or to the SWD, to the municipality.
Then we will have a courtesy call.
We will talk to the mayor, we introduce you, we inform him that you're here, you came from here.
Once we got there, they introduced me to Tita Sylvia, who was the lady who was in charge of the Department of Social Welfare in Tabogon.
You're here now?
There's my... Wow. There's more here than I thought there was. I was really curious about what Tabogon looked like, and so I was with my foster nephew for some of the time, and we walked to the Central Plaza. The Central Plaza had like this huge tree and some sitting areas. And then this one lady, she saw me. She was a stranger and I didn't even introduce myself, but she saw me from far away. So she took her arm out and she called me over like this. And so when she did that, I walked over and I said, "Hello po, kumusta?" And I had my foster nephew kind of translate what she said, because I only know Tagalog. I don't know Cebuano anymore. And all she said to me was, "You look just like your mother. By the way, you missed seeing her because she just passed away."
Which is naghimo ni una nito nga life group training. Kani nga itong life group training, dili ni sayo himuon. Kung nagaras ko nga na, tanggol sa kanya siya ikatampo, ikatabang sa inyong taksa-taksa ka panginabuhi.
See here. Our bus back.
Samta ang atong mga bana na nagabuhi, nangita o trabaho, nangita o bawang sa sulat o sa lahat ng lugar. Kita din niya natin sa tulay. Kasagaran ito, wala hindi nga ugawas lang sa pagbantay sa bata, o hindi wala pagbantay sa balay. Sa ato pa, nilabay ang adlaw na ang nangita o pinagulan mismo ang atong mga bana. Kita, kasagaran, nasayang ang oras sa biling tayo ng pamahalang pangutang. Ang pagkakapagkakapag ko sa iyo.
And so during then, they would all speak together, and I would sit there. And I didn't really quite understand what was going on. And then I would have Tita Emma just tell me about what was going on.
Pag ato na ako sa sentro dito pa sa doktora, Dok, una ri, Dok, pagtanaw kay buhi ri, patay ra pa to. Giuna gini doktora pagtanaw.
You had fever when you were found. You had fever. You were treated, and when your alleged mother, the alleged mother who reported to the barangay that there's a baby found there, and so the barangay, the ex-barangay captain, they brought you here to Miss Bidoya, and Miss Bidoya, they went to the place, and Miss Bidoya requested the health officer, the doctor, to attend to you immediately because you had a fever and you were treated. Some of the relatives, 2 days after, you were brought at RCC. They went to RCC with their interest to get you back. But since they don't have any proof, and the mother herself did not admit that you were her son, so there was no evidences to prove that you were the relative of those who came to RSCC.
So you were not returned?
The staff of the RSCC did not facilitate that return until your documents were processed for international adoption.
Okay. Before, they're afraid of you will be filed a case for abandonment. For abandonment in the checking. Before na declared already that
she already made a declaration that it was her who found you, and she did not claim you as her son. That's why she kept that information to her. Okay, we go to.
He's the husband of the barangay captain.
Present barangay captain. That's why.
Okay na ako nga.
Parang Crispin daw, no?
He said that you are the same face. The mother. The mother. The same mother.
Wala patay ng mama ni mo?
Dead. Your mother is dead. Your mother. Patay, dead. Liver cirrhosis.
Ganun ka siguro man mo siya ang mama.
Ha? Wa may lain na itong mabdos diya, ma'am. Tita. Nga, gidungog na nagtapok, naghatag og kilig anak sa daan.
Wala kita tayo way nga mga dahil bata nga mabutang. Dahil, parang lang barangay.
Ang iksuna ng manghod, ma'am, marag mamabuta lang siya.
Malagi, kapit mi sa rasyo.
Wa ka rasyo, nagbinabag.
Rasyo, sa rasyo.
Ang anak ni Ibig.
Ako, Genevieve Ochia, grade 8, naa sa Kanglini, Elverio.
Nakaibaw na
Presidente ba ako sa rasyo. Amo lagi hapiton mo na among itinerary. Gikan din ni kaduawan kanay pili. Gikan sa kanay pili ato mi sa rasyo. Mapito na mo sa dahil ato kami.
Nya, pag orderan nyo guys dito.
Nya asam nato si Kapitan Nikita ron.
Ang patuon pa, paso ako ito sa orasyon, gitiksan na ako.
Pa magbagat ta sa orasyon.
Tanong ako sa orasyon.
Wala lagi nga. Musag ka. Aron dili na sila balik.
Abot na tanan sa orasyon.
Sa orasyon. Ika na like ko ang kay. Mana na lugat sa
Pabagda lang siya.
Okay, ikuha na niya. Sige.
Hindi, silini po, bebo na ako.
When we were on our way, they said, because you just wanted to start looking for Elizabeth Ochia, the people in the village had strongly believed that Elizabeth Ochia is not your finder, but actually she is your mother. So we go to visit Elizabeth Ochia's sister in Mabali. We go to visit Elizabeth Ochia's sister in Mabali. We get there, and it was just so weird. Because we have the same face and we have the same cheekbones and a lot of similarities.
This is Nanay Philly. Nanay Philly. Nanay Philly. Oh, the sister of Beth. Video, crying time. Oh, look. Tanawa sa itsura. Liwat? Ningo lagi sila ni. Na, the sister of your kuan.
Elizabeth.
Wait, wala ay kanindot og
wala mong gid karon pa niya siya nakaibaw nga mama gid niya si Elizabeth kay ang iyang gipakuan na si Elizabeth gipunitan man lang niya.
Gipunitan bitaw siya.
Pero
dili jud siya anak.
Pagkuan lagi ni Elizabeth. Dili anak ang iyang pagkuan.
Dili jud siya tinawad anak ni Beth. No, dili jud.
Punitan lang jud to.
Pinitan na niya na makiro lang siya kabaw.
Mao na lagi iyang sulti. Mao sad na inyong nahibawan. Pero ang tinuod jud
dili niya anak.
And they kept trying to get her to acknowledge that I am the son of Elizabeth Ochia.
Mao ilang kuan.
Mao lagi isulti ni Elizabeth sa inyo.
Pero kinsa man to sa inyo ha nang miadto sa RSCC.
Kuya bantay.
Di wa siya kaakuan.
Wa ko kabantay.
Ang naamon kuno ni katong gidad-an namo ani bataa didto sa DSWD. Naamon kuno ni apas didto ni kuan kuhaon unta lagi ni. Si kuan kuno itsuon ninyo nga katudto as kabalita.
Bagkana.
Mandawe.
Mo tingali. Kay ingon man na timan ako no gastuhan na ni Beth. Iyan na kuno yung sagupon ni Beth. Yan sa umang kuhaon mang ikunos DSWD. Agihatag na lang.
Mao lagi ang iyang pasabot.
Oo.
Mao gyud Ano siya ni mo ngayon? Wanya ang una.
Ang ako sang anak gusto gyud makikita ani.
Sa alas Diyos eh.
Iya na naamay bangga dito sa kanan
Take care
tuan
ni
kani ba.
Ni Ben.
Kanina kong bundan, yang ako pong mga isuon diri sa libho. Gusto ko rin kikita-kita ani. Bahala na lang ko noon siya. Isipon yun niya ang ko.
Nahinumdum ka ano sa ni kuan niyan.
Murag 20 naman ikaw.
Wala gi ano sa ato nga kuan na ira.
Alimot mo kuan.
But you look the same.
Basta ang puso na lagi siya. Mga pilalan to ka adlaw nga gikuha na mo na.
Magsimana na pud. Oy kani nga to guday bit sa bugo ato. Nagpalit dayon siya bibiron og gatas. Iya ging atiman dayon ni.
Mga simana di ito.
Oh. Kay nalanog
na pa man lagi tong pusod.
Nalanog man dayon tong istorya nga naay na pulmitang bata.
Na pa lagi ang pusod ato.
Puso na baho na.
Oo,
Baho
man
na
na
dili ka.
Asa man to dapit nga saging, dili to diri dapit.
Dili.
Dili
Dito, dayo pa.
Dayo pa dapit na to.
Kaduawan pa man ni.
Kasi nga lang ni kaduawan.
Mabuli man to.
Kaduawan.
Mabuli man to na sakop.
Ato pa mi sa eskwelahan, kay gusto siya mo sa anak ni Elizabeth.
Nasa libo. Wag intan og mata.
Di pa usa mo.
Na. Pinangga sa maestra.
Kani ba
Kano
siya?
sa kanimo balik no?
Ka Genevieve ba? Silvia. Ato bang ka Genevieve sa bata. Natong i-remove dito.
Ang mga yo lamig numbers
I-remove nato dito sa kumpang dito basa.
Tita Feli, she took the DSWD and me all the way to the cemetery of where my mother was buried.
Sino to?
Elizabeth? No, kuan yan. Name yan. Walingan? Walingan pa din naman day.
Walingan, day pili wala pa nga. Wala pa ni siyangan kay wa pa mi ka kuag lapida. Mo ni siya.
Elizabeth, look.
Sil? Tapos magtahan si Buro Agi. Naman to kahibaw nga niya rin. Nag-unaman to.
Nag-unaman siya. Ayaw sa ha kay I'll take a picture.
Movie.
This is Elizabeth Ochea's grave. My alleged biological mother. At the time, I didn't really know if Elizabeth Ochea was my mother or not because they just said that she was allegedly my mother. And that during that time, I just thought, okay, well, she might be my mother, she might not be. And so that's that. We went to Horacio Franco High School. And Horacio Franco High School is about 20 minutes away, I believe. Maybe even closer. And so we go there, and we get introduced to the daughter of Elizabeth Ochea. Her name is Genevieve. And she's 17 years old. So we get invited in, and they take us to the teacher's room or the teacher's office. And I sit there, and I just wait for Genevieve to get out of class. I sit down, my sister walks in, and so she sat right next to me. And they kind of told me to hold her hand because they wanted to see if we had this thing called luksong dugo, which means like the jump of blood. And in Filipino culture, it's kind of like a feeling that someone gets when they recognize another person who's like a family member. And I think maybe because I was just really nervous at the time, or I was having a lot of anxiety that I didn't introduce myself at all yet. And so they ask her, okay, what is your name? And she says, my name is Genevieve Ochia. And then they said, okay, what is your mother's name? And she says, my mother's name was Elizabeth Ochia. Do you know if Elizabeth Ochia or your mother has had any other children? And then Genevieve said, yeah, she told me I had a brother once, and his name was James Benny. And at that point, I believed that Genevieve Ochia was my sister, and Elizabeth Ochia was indeed my mom. After I met my biological sister at the high school, she took me around and she asked me, she called me Kuya actually, and Kuya means older brother. And I thought that was the cutest and the coolest thing ever to have her call me that. And so we went into her classroom and she said, I want to show you around to my classmates. She takes me into her classroom and says, guys, look, this is my Kuya, this is my older brother. And it just made me feel so complete inside for her to say that. And they all just like stood there confused at first, because it's like, oh my gosh, she has an older brother. Because I just surfaced out of nowhere. And I learned that she now lives with our biological grandmother, or Lola, which means grandmother in Filipino. And so our Lola, or grandmother, is actually 94 years old. And because our biological mother is passed away, she now stays with them. But she's also fortunate to have a lot of biological cousins who also live nearby. And so I flew back to Manila after my week-long stay in Cebu. When I flew back, I got to stay with my foster sister again. Her name is Ate Sonia. During one of the days, I started getting all these random text messages from people who claimed to be my biological cousins. One of them, her name was Jennifer Ochia Gonato, and Jennifer Ochia Gonato is one of my biological cousins. So I went to go see Auntie Jennifer Gonato. So I go meet up with her and we talk and we get to know each other, and it was really interesting and cool. On my last day in the Philippines, I was able to invite her over and be able to spend some time with her. And then during that time, I was able to learn more about my biological mother.
Before she found a child, she stayed with us. I don't remember how many months, but because they told us that she's looking for a job together with her cousin. Then, as my mother observed here that something strange happening to her body, my mother asked her, are you pregnant? She said, no. I grew bigger because I ate a lot. That's what she told to my mother. Pero, but my mom didn't believe her. Because my mom noticed something about her. Different. It's different. Yeah, she told my father about that Elizabeth was pregnant. My father got angry, sabi niya. She's just chismosa. Wala nga yung asawa. Elizabeth don't have a husband. Why is it that she gets pregnant? But my mom thought, no. Because I had already, I have many children already. So I know the body of being pregnant. My mama told me, Day, try to observe. Because I was in, they called me Inday. Day, try to observe Tia Ibit. Your aunt Ibit. Try to observe her. As what I observed here, she's pregnant. Then, wala na ako alam. I don't know about it kung ano ang buntis ang pregnant. I don't know. That time. So, a few months later, she went home to the province. After a month or two, we heard news that she found a baby hanging on a banana palm. But we didn't believe. My mom said, it's confirmed. She's pregnant. So when the DSW took the child, she go with, I think she go with, along with the DSWD. So she cried with us. She go to our house, and she cried and cried. She begged my parents to adopt the child. But my father said, how can I adopt the child? I don't see it. I don't see that baby. So my mom and my brother went there to the DSWD. We saw the child. Then the staff there said, maybe you're the father because you look like the baby. Sabi ng kapatid ko, my brother told him, how can I? She's my auntie. Why is it that you're accusing me? She's my auntie. She's the sister of my father. And I'm just 17 years old that time. That time, my brother is only 17 years old. So, my mom asked, what do you think? And ko nga, oh, the baby is cute, ma'am. Okay. Ano, ma? Adopt the baby. Siya, okay, we'll talk about it with your father. See, I remember my mom told me, at dawn, Auntie Elizabeth will crawl to the room. Ginagapang niya yung mama ko. She's crying, begging them to adopt the child.
During this dialogue, I also learned that I was not actually abandoned, contrary to the status quo that most adoptions are. Most people assume or generalize that adoptees are all children who were abandoned.
I think 2 weeks or ano. I don't really remember how many weeks. She's always crying, begging my parents to adopt the child. Begging my parents to adopt the child. But it's hard for us, it's hard for my parents to adopt the child because of her first statements that she only found the child. And there's so many processes before we can adopt it. During the time when we go back there, this WD, wala na yung bata. He's no longer around. I thought he was transferred. No, he was transferred already. And the staff told us, somebody adopted already. An American. I asked my mother before. I remember I asked my mother, what's the name of the baby? She said, James Benny Ronda. I go, what does it mean? My mother told me, James is his name. Bini means BINITAY sa puno ng saging. Then Ronda, damit white. Ruby Rondina. Yun ang sabi niya.
That's what I remember.
So I found out that that whole story was all fabricated by my mother due to the certain circumstances of her pregnancy and giving birth to me. Although I was unable to meet my biological mother physically, I still feel her with me, watching over me every day. I think that because I was in the dark of my own ethnic heritage and backgrounds and culture, it was the driving force of why I wanted to learn about Philippine culture. And then being part of the Philippine culture and Filipino community, I got to learn the right cultural traditions, the mores, the ways of life of the Filipinos in the Philippines. It helped me be able to reconnect with the people in the Philippines. It helped me be able to not seem awkward, even though when I opened my mouth, people already knew I was American. And it helped me be able to adjust to the Philippine culture. I found out that, adopted or not, I'm still a Filipino at heart.